The chamber fell silent as Commander Jake Morrison placed a single data crystal on the Council's pedestal. 47 species watched as holographic text materialized above it. Coordinates, timestamps, evacuation windows. "This is your final warning," he said, voice cold as vacuum. "Withdraw from human settlements within 72 hours, or we respond under Protocol Omega." The Thexian ambassador's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. Impossible energy weapons, fairy tales to frighten children. Morrison's jaw tightened. He'd seen the reconnaissance footage. 3 colonies burned, 2 million dead. Then consider this a bedtime story you'll remember. He turned to leave, boots echoing in the vast hall. Behind him, the council erupted in dismissive chatter. What they didn't know, humanity had just activated something the galaxy believed couldn't exist. If you're ready to witness what happens when humanity stops asking permission, hit that like button and subscribe to HFY Core, because this warning was humanity's last act of mercy. Now let's move forward into the trial that will reshape the stars themselves. 71 hours later, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiant, watching the timer count down to 0. Around him, the Fleet Intelligence Center hummed with controlled urgency. Officers monitoring quantum channels, tactical displays showing enemy positions across 6 systems, civilian evacuation status scrolling endlessly on auxiliary screens. "Sir, final transport just cleared the Arcturus checkpoint," Lieutenant Chen reported from her station. "All human civilians are outside the engagement zone." Morrison nodded, but his attention was fixed on the alien figure standing beside him. Calix, a Vryn tactical analyst, had defected 3 weeks ago with intelligence about the coming purge. Her bioluminescent skin patterns shifted through anxious purples and grays, colors that he'd learned meant her people were processing something beyond their normal experience. "Your council," she said, her voice carrying that distinctive harmonic overtone of Vryn speech. "They genuinely believe your warning was political theater, posturing before retreat." "They believed wrong," Morrison replied. His hand moved to the command tablet, fingers hovering over the authorization screen. 42 other ships in the fleet were synced to this moment. Captains he'd served with for decades, good people about to do something terrible, because the alternative was extinction. The Thexian Empire had made its position clear. Humanity's rapid expansion was ecologically destabilizing. Their solution had been clinical: orbital bombardment of frontier worlds during harvest season, maximum casualties with minimal effort. The Council, dominated by species who viewed humans as upstart primitives, had vetoed every appeal for intervention. So humanity had stopped appealing. "The zero-point energy matrix," Calix said quietly. "Your scientists truly stabilized it?" Morrison glanced at her. Most species had theoretical models for extracting energy from quantum vacuum fluctuations, the so-called impossible energy that existed in the space between atoms. Every attempt to harness it had resulted in catastrophic failure. The math worked. The engineering didn't. Until it did. 14 months ago, Morrison confirmed. "We've been running full-scale tests in the Kepler Deep. The Council's intelligence services were too busy watching our frontier to notice our shipyards. Then the weapons are real, and they're online." The timer reached 0. Morrison pressed his thumb to the authorization screen. Across the fleet, 42 captains did the same. The synchronized command rippled through encrypted channels, a digital cascade that humanity could no longer call back. "All ships," Morrison announced, his voice broadcast across every bridge. "Protocol Omega is now active. You have your targets. Make it count. Make them remember." On the tactical display, the fleet began to move. Not toward the Thexian battle groups, toward their supply infrastructure. Refueling stations, logistics hubs, the vulnerable arteries that kept their war machine fed. "Target acquisition confirmed," Chen reported. Enemy sensors are tracking us. Sir, they're not repositioning their defense grids. Morrison felt something cold settle in his chest. They think we're running a feint. Should we transmit engagement protocols, standard honor codes? No. The word came out harder than he intended. They burned 3 colonies without warning. They get the same courtesy. Calyx's patterns flashed bright orange. Alarm. Commander, I must state formally. This will change how every species views humanity. There will be no neutrality after this. Morrison met her eyes, those triple iris configurations that saw deeper into the EM spectrum than humans could naturally perceive. Good. Neutrality got 2 million of our people killed. The first wave reached firing range. ZPE capacitors charged, Weapons Officer Davis called out. Solution locked. Fire. The universe bent. That was the only way Morrison could describe it later. Reality itself seemed to fold inward for a microsecond before the zero-point cannon discharged. No visible beam, no dramatic flash, just a distortion in space that traveled at 98% light speed and intersected with a Phexian fuel depot 3 light minutes away. It simply ceased to exist. One moment, the tactical display showed a station complex hosting 60 freighters and support craft. The next, there was an expanding sphere of debris, so fine it barely registered on sensors. Matter converted directly to energy. Einstein's equation made manifest in the most absolute way possible. Target destroyed, Davis reported, voice shaken despite his professional training. 0-point discharge successful. No cascade failure. Across the fleet, similar reports cascaded in. 42 targets, 42 erasures. The quantum encrypted channels erupted with Phexian military traffic, confusion, disbelief, then raw panic. Morrison felt sick, but he kept his expression neutral as he turned to Chen. Broadcast the following on all standard frequencies, all languages. The Terran Commonwealth has responded to acts of genocide with measured force against military infrastructure. All civilian vessels are to evacuate combat zones immediately. We will fire on military targets only. This is your second and final warning. Withdraw from all human-settled systems within 48 hours, or we will continue prosecution of defensive operations. Transmitted, sir. Calyx was staring at him. Measured force? Commander, you just deleted 17 trillion credits of infrastructure in 17 seconds. And we could have deleted their colony worlds. We didn't. That's what measured means. Morrison pulled up casualty reports. Preliminary, but the AIs were fast. Depot crews were minimal. Automated facilities. Total Phexian casualties across all targets, approximately 800 personnel. He let that number hang in the air. They killed 2 million of ours in 3 hours. We could have killed 800 million of theirs in the same time. Morrison's voice dropped to something colder than the void outside. Instead, we killed 800 and destroyed their ability to continue offensive operations. That's not vengeance. That's strategy. The communications panel lit up. Incoming transmission from Council Central. Morrison smiled without humor. That was fast. Sir, it's High Chancellor Vexuel. Personal channel. Encrypted. Put him through. The holographic projection materialized. A Caltharian whose crystalline facial structure caught the bridge lighting in fractured rainbows. His expression, however, was far from beautiful. Commander Morrison, the Council demands immediate. No. The Chancellor stopped mid-sentence. You're not making demands anymore, Morrison continued. You're listening. For 72 hours, we told you what would happen. Now, here's what happens next. The tactical display lit up with new contacts. Hundreds of them. Emerging from quantum jump points across the combat zone. Morrison felt his blood freeze as Chen's voice cracked through the bridge. Sir, we have massive hostile contacts. Configuration matches. She looked up, face pale. It's the entire Thexian home fleet. They're not withdrawing. They're reinforcing. And then every screen in the intelligence center went black. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the bridge in red. In the darkness, Calyx whispered, "They think you're bluffing." "Full system diagnostic," Morrison barked, snapping his crew out of their shock. "I want to know if we're hacked, or if this is an EMP effect." "Neither, sir." Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew across her manual backup controls. "It's a quantum disruption field. They're flooding the space with entangled particle interference, cutting our communication and sensor networks." Morrison's jaw tightened. The Thexians had just deployed technology that shouldn't exist in their arsenal, which meant they'd been holding back, preparing for this exact scenario. "Switch to analog targeting systems," he ordered. "If they want to fight like it's the 21st century, we'll accommodate them." Calyx moved to auxiliary console, her bioluminescent patterns now a steady tactical blue. "Commander, I recognize this deployment pattern. It's the Vex protocol, a doctrine my people advise them against. They're creating a quantum dark zone, specifically to neutralize advanced weapons systems. Does it work on zero-point weapons? Unknown. No one's ever deployed both simultaneously. Then I guess we're about to find out." Morrison pulled up the tactical grid on an old-fashioned monitor, crude but functional. The Thexian home fleet was spreading out in a classic envelopment formation. 300 capital ships moving to surround his 42. The math was brutal, but math had never been humanity's only weapon. "Get me Captains Reynolds, Okafor, and Chen on hardline," Morrison said, referencing the fiber-optic communication cables that ran between ships in close formation. Ancient technology, but quantum interference couldn't touch it. Minutes later, holographic faces appeared via the hardline projectors. Fuzzy, but clear enough. Jake, Captain Reynolds of the Valkyries, spoke first, her voice tense. "Tell me you have a plan, because my crew's about 3 minutes from panic." "I have a plan," Morrison confirmed, "but you're not going to like it. We're going to split the fleet." Dead silence on the line. Captain Okafor, commanding the Sentinel, recovered first. "You want to divide our forces against a numerical advantage? That's suicide." "It's misdirection," Morrison corrected. "They're expecting us to group defensively, pool our zero-point capabilities. Instead, we're going to do something insane." He pulled up a navigational chart. "There's an unstable quantum foam region 12 light minutes from here. The Void Scar. It's been a navigation hazard for 70 years. Unpredictable spatial distortions, random energy discharges. No sane captain goes near it." Captain Chen's eyes widened. "You want to use it as cover?" "Better. I want to use it as a weapon. The Thexians know our specs from intelligence reports. They know our jump drives can't handle high-density quantum fluctuations. They think we can't navigate the Scar." Morrison smiled grimly. "But our drives are rated for zero-point energy containment. That means they can handle quantum chaos they've never even imagined." Reynolds leaned forward. "You're going to bait them into the Scar. Half the fleet, with me on point, will look like we're fleeing, hoping to lose them in the interference. When they follow, they'll find out their drive systems can't compensate. Meanwhile, the other half loops around and hits their logistics train while their attention is focused on us." "That's," Okafor paused, "actually brilliant, and completely reckless." "Welcome to human military doctrine," Morrison replied. "Who's with me?" All 3 captains signaled affirmation, though Reynolds added, "For the record, if we survive this, I'm retiring. Brief your crews. We execute in 10 minutes. The line disconnected. Calyx approached Morrison as the bridge crews scrambled to prepare. "Commander, I should note that the Vryn have attempted similar maneuvers through unstable regions. The loss rate exceeds 90%. "Good thing we're not Vryn." Morrison pulled up the fleet manifest. 21 ships with me, 21 under Okafor. Hit them where it hurts. Ammunition factories, medical stations, their forward command base at Zell 7. Nothing civilian. everything military. You're giving up numerical parity for a psychological strike. I'm showing them we can hit anywhere, anytime, and they can't stop us. Fear is better than firepower when you're outgunned. Morrison locked in the final navigation coordinates. Now let's see if their admirals are arrogant enough to chase us. The quantum disruption field was still active, limiting communications, which actually worked in humanity's favor. The Phyrexian fleet couldn't easily coordinate their vast numbers without quantum-encrypted channels. All ships, this is Morrison, he transmitted via hardline to his half of the fleet. Plot quantum jump to void scar coordinates. Make it look panicked. Staggered jumps, minor course deviations. We're scared humans running for cover. Sir, the crew knows we're not actually scared, right? Chen asked. The crew, Morrison said quietly, knows we're about to fly into a region of space where reality occasionally forgets how to work. So yes, being scared is perfectly reasonable. The jump drive spooled up, that distinctive thrumming vibration that every spacer could feel in their bones. On the tactical display, half the fleet began to move, 21 ships executing a desperate-looking retreat vector. From the Phyrexian positions, response was immediate. Their battle fleet broke formation, 200 ships moving to intercept and destroy the fleeing humans. Meanwhile, unnoticed in the chaos, Captain Okafor's half of the fleet powered down to minimal signatures and began a slow, quiet drift toward Phyrexian supply lines. Enemy is pursuing, Chen reported. They're committing the entire home fleet to the chase. Morrison felt adrenaline spike. Good. They think they've won. Helm, initiate jump. The bridge twisted. That was the only word for it. Space itself seemed to rotate around a point that shouldn't exist, and then the Defiant was somewhere else. The view screens showed a region of space that looked wrong, like reality through a broken lens. Energy discharges flickered in the distance, violet and sickly green. Gravitational eddies tugged at the ship in random directions. Welcome to the Void Scar. Hull integrity holding, Davis reported. Jump drive stable. We're actually navigating this. Of course we are. Morrison pulled up the positioning data. The rest of his fleet was filtering in, ships appearing in staggered sequence as planned. Spread out. Make them think we're trying to hide. Behind them, through the quantum chaos, Phyrexian ships began to emerge. And immediately, things went wrong, for them. A Phyrexian cruiser materialized directly in the path of an energy discharge. Its shields flared, overloaded, and collapsed. Hull breach warnings would be screaming on their bridge right now. Another ship appeared too close to a gravitational eddy, its drive systems struggling to compensate for forces they weren't designed to handle. They're losing cohesion, Chen observed. Their formation is breaking down. Morrison watched as the Phyrexian pursuit force scattered, each ship fighting its own battle against the Void Scar's chaos. Their numerical advantage meant nothing when they couldn't coordinate. Now, Morrison ordered, target the command vessels. They'll be the ones with the best shielding, trying to maintain fleet coordination. Take them out and the rest becomes a mob. The Defiance 0-point cannon charged. Even in the quantum chaos, the weapon's containment field held perfectly, because it was designed to control the fundamental chaos of vacuum energy itself. Target locked. Phyrexian Dreadnought. Designation Alpha 7. Fire. Reality bent again. The Phyrexian Dreadnought vanished in that characteristic dissolution. No explosion, just sudden absence. Across the Scar, Morrison's fleet opened up. 16 more command ships ceased to exist in rapid succession. Sir, receiving transmission from Captain Okafor, communications reported. Audio only. Heavily degraded. Put him through. Static washed over the bridge. Then Okafor's voice, grainy but triumphant. Trike successful. Zell 7 forward base neutralized. Ammunition production facilities at Kepler 442 destroyed. Medical station negative. We bypassed medical. Civilian ships evacuating. We're moving too. The transmission cut out. Good enough, Morrison muttered. The psychological impact was what mattered. Humanity could strike deep into Phyrexian territory. while their main fleet was being torn apart in the Void Scar. "Commander," Calix said, her voice tight, "the Thexian ships are retreating. They're attempting to jump out. Let 'em go. We've made our point." But as the Thexian fleet scrambled to escape the Void Scar's chaos, something changed. On every human ship's display, a new signal appeared, broadcast on every frequency, impossible to jam even through the quantum disruption. It was coming from the Thexian homeworld, a declaration of total war. Not just against the human fleet, against every human colony, station, and settlement in known space. The Emperor himself was speaking, mandibles clicking in rage. "The human infestation has revealed its true nature. We offered them a clean death. Now they will receive extinction." Morrison felt ice in his veins as tactical projections appeared. Thexian forces throughout the galaxy were receiving new orders. Civilian targets, scorched earth, no quarter. And then the holographic display showed something that made his blood freeze. Jump signatures, massive ones, converging on humanity's core worlds, Earth included. "Sir," Chen whispered, "they're not just reinforcing. They've been planning a simultaneous strike the entire time. This was their trigger." Morrison's hands gripped the console. "Get me Okafor. Get me Fleet Command. Get me anyone who can warn Earth." "Quantum disruption is still active, sir. We can't." A new alarm screamed across the bridge. Different tone. Priority override. "What now?" Morrison demanded. Chen looked up, face ashen. "Sir, there's something else entering the Void Scar. Massive energy signature. It's not Thexian. It's not human. It's—" The view screens whited out. When they cleared, there was a ship hanging in the quantum chaos. Not a ship, a station, massive beyond belief, studded with weapon systems that made humanity's zero-point cannons look like children's toys. And it was broadcasting on all frequencies in perfect English. "Commander Morrison, this is the Vryn Protectorate. We received your warning to the Council. We believed you. The question is, are you ready for what happens when you're not fighting alone?" Morrison stared at the Vryn battle station as his mind raced through implications. Calix's entire body flared brilliant white, the Vryn equivalent of complete shock. "That's the Eternal Witness," she breathed. "The Protectorate's deep space deterrent. It hasn't left Vryn space in 3 centuries. And now it's here," Morrison said slowly. "Right when the Thexians declare total war. That's not coincidence." The communication channel crackled. "Commander Morrison, I am Matriarch Velsora of the Vryn Protectorate. Before you ask, yes, we have been observing humanity's development. No, we have not interfered. Until now." Her voice carried harmonics that suggested immense age. "The Thexian Empire's declaration of genocide crosses lines that predate this council. Lines we Vryn remember, even if others have forgotten." Morrison exchanged glances with Calix. "With respect, Matriarch, why should we trust you? Your people sat on the council while colonies burned." Velsora corrected, "Our representatives sat on the council. Our people have been preparing for this moment since your species first split atoms. You were always going to reach this point. Innovators either join the Galactic Order or break it entirely. We wanted to see which path you chose, and you chose to warn them first. That is the path of civilization. The Thexians chose genocide. That is the path we cannot allow." On the tactical display, the Vryn battle station moved with impossible grace through the Void Scar, quantum chaos seeming to bend around its hull. Weapon ports opened, hundreds of them. "Commander Morrison," Velsora continued, "your homeworld is 47 minutes from Thexian battle fleet arrival. My vessels can reach Earth in 33 minutes via quantum tunnel. But we will not act without your explicit cooperation. This must be humanity's choice. Morrison felt the weight of that statement. This wasn't just about a battle. It was about humanity's future relationship with the entire galaxy. "What are your terms?" he asked carefully. "Simple. We provide military support to prevent genocide. In return, humanity agrees to technology-sharing protocols and accepts an advisory role on Council reformation. Not submission, partnership. And if we refuse, then we return to Vryn space, and you face the Thexian fleet alone. We will not force salvation on you. That would make us no better than conquerors." Morrison looked at his crew. Chen, Davis, the dozens of officers who trusted him through impossible odds. They'd signed up to defend humanity, not make political decisions that would reshape galactic order. But someone had to decide, and the clock was ticking. "Calix," he said quietly. "Can we trust them?" The Vryn analyst's patterns shifted through complex colors Morrison had learned meant deep consideration. The Vryn Protectorate has never broken a formal agreement in 12,000 years of recorded history. They also haven't involved themselves in galactic politics since the last synthesis. "If they're moving now," she paused. "Commander, they're not doing this for you. They're doing this because the alternative, a Thexian empire emboldened by successful genocide, threatens everyone." Morrison nodded slowly. "That's actually more reassuring than altruism." He turned to the communication display. "Matriarch Velsora, we accept your assistance. Transmit coordinates for fleet coordination." "Already done, Commander." "And Morrison, we've been monitoring your zero-point weapons. Impressive engineering. Crude, but impressive. We can help with that, too." The channel closed. "Sir," Chen reported, "receiving Vryn tactical data. Oh my god. They're painting every Thexian military installation in real time across 6 sectors." Morrison pulled up the feed. The Vryn intelligence network was beyond anything humanity had conceived. Quantum mapping that showed enemy positions down to individual ship identification. It was like fighting with fog lifted for the first time. "Transmit this to Okafor immediately, if we can." "Commander," Davis interrupted. "The Thexian fleet in the Void Scar, they're not retreating anymore. They're regrouping." On the view screen, the scattered enemy ships were reforming, but differently. They'd given up on tight formations. Instead, they were spreading out in a spherical pattern, creating overlapping fields of fire. "They adapted," Morrison observed. "Fast." "Too fast," Calix added. "That formation change requires fleet-wide coordination, but the quantum disruption should still be." She stopped, patterns flashing alarm red. "Commander, that's not adaptation. That's a different fleet." "What?" Jen's fingers flew across her console. "She's right, sir. IFF signatures are different. These are reserve units. The original pursuit force is—" She pulled up system-wide scans. They jumped out, back toward Thexian space. Morrison felt cold realization. They're abandoning the offensive, pulling back to defend their core worlds against Okafor's strike group. "Which means they left us a gift," Davis said grimly. 200 fresh ships, properly briefed on our tactics." The Thexian reserve fleet opened fire, but not with conventional weapons. The space around Morrison's ships suddenly erupted with spatial distortions. Artificial gravity wells designed to trap vessels in place while enemy fire converged. "Gravity nets," Chen shouted. "They're pinning us for bombardment runs." The Thexians had analyzed their zero-point weapons and realized the weakness. The weapons were devastating, but the ships carrying them were still bound by physics. Pin the ships, destroy them with conventional fire. Problem solved. "Full power to engines," Morrison ordered. "Break those gravity wells." "Sir, our drives can't generate enough thrust to—" "Not our drives, our zero-point reactors." Morrison pulled up engineering controls. "Route all ZPE output to the maneuvering thrusters. We don't need to overcome the gravity wells, we just need to ride them like waves." It was insane. Zero-point energy was meant for weapons, not propulsion. But Morrison wasn't trying to fly straight. He was trying to surf gravitational chaos. The Defiant lurched as massive power flooded the thruster arrays. Instead of fighting the gravity wells, the ship began to slip along their edges, using the artificial distortions like a sailboat catching wind. "It's working!" Davis exclaimed. "Gravity nets can't lock us down if we're moving with their flow." "All ships, execute maneuver Delta 7, Morrison broadcast. "Use the enemy's own trap for mobility." Across his fleet, human ships began dancing through the gravity wells, moving in ways Thexian tacticians hadn't anticipated. And while they moved, they fired. Zero-point weapons discharged at point-blank range. Thexian vessels vanished in rapid succession, their careful formations collapsing as key ships simply ceased to exist. But the enemy adapted again. They stopped trying to pin human ships. Instead, they started targeting the space around them, creating overlapping gravity wells that didn't trap, but destabilized. Morrison felt the Defiant shudder as gravitational forces pulled in contradictory directions. "Hull stress increasing," engineering reported. "These forces are going to tear us apart." Morrison looked at the tactical display. They'd destroyed perhaps 40 Thexian ships. 160 remained, and Earth's clock was down to 39 minutes. Then the Eternal Witness moved. The Vryn battle station didn't fly toward the Thexian fleet. It simply appeared among them, via some kind of quantum displacement that shouldn't have been possible. One moment it was at the edge of the Void Scar, the next it was in the center of enemy formation. And it didn't fire weapons. It did something worse. Every Thexian ship within 50 kilometers simply stopped. Engines dead, weapons offline, life support on backup. "They're deploying a quantum stasis field," Calix whispered. "Technology we lost access to millennia ago." "They're not destroying the ships. They're preserving them as evidence." Morrison understood immediately. The Vryn weren't just fighting a battle. They were building a war crimes case. "Commander Morrison," Matriarch Velsora's voice returned. "We have neutralized immediate threats. Proceed to Earth at best speed. We will maintain containment here and process these vessels for tribunal evidence. The crews will stand trial, not execution." "You're taking prisoners," Morrison said. "All of them." "We are establishing precedent. This war ends with justice, not revenge. Can humanity accept that?" Morrison thought of the 2 million dead on 3 colonies, thought of families vaporized without warning. Every instinct screamed for vengeance. But that wasn't what they'd warned the Council about. "We can," he said. "We will." "Then go, save your homeworld. We will handle the rest here." Morrison didn't need to be told twice. "Helm, plot quantum jump to Earth orbit. All ships, maximum burn. We're going home." As the fleet prepared to jump, Morrison caught Calix watching him with those strange triple iris eyes. "You gave them mercy," she said, "after everything they did." "Not mercy, justice. There's a difference." Morrison strapped into his command chair. "Mercy is forgetting. Justice is making sure they never forget why this happened." The jump drive engaged. Space twisted. And when it cleared, Morrison found himself staring at Earth. Beautiful blue marble hanging in the void. Surrounded by 300 Thexian warships, and one human defensive fleet of 87 ships, massively outgunned, broadcasting a single message on repeat. "This is Admiral Catherine Park, Terran Home Defense. We hold this line. We will not yield. If you want Earth, you go through us first." Morrison felt pride and terror in equal measure. Then his tactical display lit up with new contacts. Behind the Thexian fleet, dozens of Vryn ships emerging from quantum tunnels. And ahead of them, between Earth and the Thexians, space itself began to ripple. "What is that?" Chen asked. Morrison stared as massive structures materialized. Not ships, but stations, weapons platforms, defense grids, technology that looked human but refined beyond anything their engineers had designed. "Matriarch Velsora," he transmitted, "what are we looking at?" The Vryn leader's response carried something like amusement. "When we said we've been watching humanity develop, we meant we've been helping. Discreetly. Those defense platforms are yours, Commander. Your engineers designed the concepts. We simply helped them reach production grade. Consider it an investment in a promising species." Morrison felt the ground shift under galactic politics. The Thexians hadn't just picked a fight with humans. They'd picked a fight with humans backed by the galaxy's oldest power. And then, Admiral Park's voice cut through. "Morrison, is that you? Please tell me you brought something good." Morrison looked at his fleet. 21 ships, armed with weapons the galaxy had called impossible. Backed by Vryn technology that made his weapons look primitive. "Admiral," he replied, "I brought the future. Now let's show them what that looks like." The Thexian commander broadcast an ultimatum: surrender Earth or watch it burn. Morrison's response was simple: you were warned, and Earth's defense grid came online. The Thexian fleet commander, a veteran named Crestal, whose reputation for ruthless efficiency preceded him, made his final calculation. 300 ships against a scattered human defense. Even with Vryn support appearing behind him, the math favored a quick, brutal strike. He'd fought in 17 campaigns, subjugated 4 species, never lost. He transmitted attack orders. That was his last mistake. Earth's defense grid didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, every platform activated simultaneously, creating interlocking fields of zero-point energy that formed a lattice around the planet. Not a shield, a cage of controlled quantum chaos. The leading edge of the Thexian formation hit the field, and their drives immediately redlined. Ships designed to navigate normal space found themselves trying to fly through a region where quantum vacuum fluctuations had been weaponized. It wasn't destroying them, it was making their movement unpredictable, sloppy. Exactly what Morrison had planned. "All fleet elements," Admiral Park broadcast, "weapons free. Target command ships first. Make them leaderless." Morrison's fingers moved across his tactical display. "Chen, coordinate with Admiral Park's tactical net. I want synchronized zero-point discharge on my mark. 21 ships, 87 targets, simultaneous fire." "That's a quarter of their fleet, sir, in one volley." "That's the point. We don't fight 300 ships. We fight 75 survivors who just watched their fleet get cut in half." The targeting solutions locked. Every human ship in the engagement had a designated target. Command vessels, capital ships, carriers, the crucial elements that made the Thexian war machine functional. "Sir," Davis reported, "Vryn ships are moving into flanking position." "They're not engaging yet. They're watching," Calix observed. "Testing how we handle victory, whether we show restraint or excess." Morrison understood. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving humanity deserved a seat at the galactic table. That meant fighting like professionals, not exterminators. "All ships," Morrison transmitted, "you are cleared to fire on military targets only. Any ship broadcasting surrender is to be directed to containment zones. Any civilian vessel attempting to flee the combat zone receives safe passage. We're not the Thexians. Make sure they understand the difference." "Target solutions locked," multiple captains confirmed. "Fire." 108 zero-point cannons discharged simultaneously. The space around Earth flickered as reality bent in 108 different locations. 87 Thexian ships simply vanished. Command vessels, carriers, dreadnoughts, all converted to dispersed atomic particles in an instant. The remaining 21 shots had been deliberately set for near misses. Warning shots that passed within meters of their hulls, close enough to feel the quantum distortion against their shields. The psychological effect was immediate. The Thexian formation broke, not from damage, but from understanding. They'd just watched their command structure evaporate. They'd felt death pass close enough to touch. And the humans had deliberately missed. Broadcasting on all frequencies, Morrison announced. Thexian forces, this is Commander Jake Morrison, Terran Commonwealth Fleet. You have 30 seconds to broadcast surrender and withdraw to designated zones. Any ship that continues hostile action will be eliminated. This is not a negotiation. This is your chance to live. For 15 seconds, silence. Then, one by one, Thexian ships began broadcasting surrender codes. Not all of them. 40 ships, their captains too proud or too scared to quit, broke formation and accelerated toward Earth on suicide runs. Admiral Park's defense fleet moved to intercept. But Morrison saw the angle first. Hold fire, Admiral. I've got this. The Defiant broke formation, accelerating directly toward the suicide squadron. Behind Morrison, 20 other ships followed his lead. Sir, Chen said carefully, you're flying straight at them. I know. That's not standard tactics. No, it's not. Morrison pulled up a very specific set of coordinates. Davis, charge 0-point weapons, full power, but don't target their ships. Sir, target the space between us. I want a quantum barrier. A wall of destabilized vacuum they can't cross without their ships tearing apart. Davis blinked. We've never tested that application. Then this will be educational. The 40 Thexian ships closed to firing range. Their weapons charged. Kinetic accelerators, plasma lances, old-fashioned but effective. Morrison waited. 300 kilometers, 200, 100. Now, 21 0-point cannons fired in perfect synchronization, not at targets, but at coordinates forming a sphere between human and Thexian forces. The quantum distortions intersected, overlapped, created a region of space where normal physics took a vacation. The suicide squadron hit the barrier at full burn. Ships didn't explode. They simply couldn't exist in that space. Drives failed as quantum uncertainty made navigation impossible. Weapons misfired as targeting systems couldn't determine position. Hulls groaned as microscopic quantum fluctuations stressed molecular bonds. The squadrons stopped dead, trapped in a cage of impossible physics. Broadcasting to trapped vessels, Morrison transmitted. You can't move forward. You can't fire. You can back out, or you can wait there until life support fails. Your choice. One by one, the ships reversed course, retreating from the quantum barrier. Surrenders confirmed, Chen reported. All hostile vessels are broadcasting stand-down codes. Morrison exhaled. Around Earth, 300 ships had become prisoners or debris in less than 4 minutes. Admiral Park, he transmitted, the space is yours. We'll maintain perimeter security while you process surrenders. Copy that, Morrison. Admiral Park's voice carried exhausted relief. For the record, that was the most terrifying piece of flying I've ever seen. Gets the job done. Behind the scene of surrender, the Vryn fleet hung in space, weapons still powered, but not engaging. Matriarch Velsora's communication came through. Impressive restraint, Commander. Your species shows promise. With respect, Matriarch, we're not performing for approval. We're establishing principles. A pause. Then something that might have been Vryn laughter. Even better. Perhaps the galaxy isn't beyond saving after all. Now, shall we discuss what happens next? Before Morrison could respond, every display on the bridge lit up with priority alerts. Sir, Chen's voice cracked, we're receiving distress calls. Multiple colonies, they're under attack. Morrison felt ice return to his veins. The Thexians have other fleets? Not Thexians, sir. Chen looked up, face pale. They've deployed peacekeeping forces to restore order. They're occupying human colonies in the name of preventing escalation. Morrison stared at the tactical display as dozens of council ships, representing multiple species, appeared at human settlements across 6 sectors. Not attacking, just occupying. "They're taking hostages," said quietly, "forcing you to negotiate from a position of weakness." Morrison's hands clenched. They'd just won the battle for Earth, and the Council had immediately moved to make that victory meaningless. "Sir, incoming transmission," communications reported. "It's High Chancellor Vexul. He's demanding immediate ceasefire and your presence at emergency council session." "When?" "In 6 hours, on neutral station. He's threatening sanctions and military action if you don't comply." Morrison looked at Earth, saved for now, looked at his fleet, exhausted, running on determination and adrenaline, looked at the vast galactic map where human settlements were being systematically occupied by peacekeepers. They'd stopped the genocide, but the war was far from over. "Commander," Matriarch Velsora's voice cut through, "before you respond to the Council, you should know. We have documentation. Every war crime, every broken treaty, every deliberate failure to intervene. The Phyrexians weren't acting alone. They had Council approval. Tacit, but documented." Morrison went very still. "You're saying the Council sanctioned genocide?" "I'm saying the Council allowed it, chose not to stop it, which, under galactic law, makes them complicit. The question, Commander Morrison, is what humanity does with that information." "You're offering us leverage." "I'm offering you justice. The galaxy's power structure is broken. It failed your people. The question is whether you want revenge or reformation." Morrison thought about the 2 million dead, thought about Admiral Park's desperate defense, thought about colonies now occupied by the very council that had let them burn. "Transmit acceptance to High Chancellor Vexul," Morrison ordered. "I'll attend his session, in 6 hours, on one condition." "Sir?" "The session is broadcast, live, to every species, every colony, every settlement in Council space. If they want to discuss human aggression, fine. Let's discuss everything else too." Communications hesitated. "Sir, the Chancellor will never agree to—" "He will," Morrison interrupted, "because the alternative is us broadcasting Vrin evidence directly. At least this way, he controls the format." Morrison turned to Calyx. "How good is your species at public testimony?" Her patterns shifted to determined gold. "If you're asking whether I'll testify about what the Council knew and when they knew it, Commander, I brought you intelligence specifically for this moment. I won't back down now." "Good." Morrison pulled up the communications display. "Someone get me Captain Okafor, and find me whoever's in charge of human media networks. If the Council wants a trial, let's give them one they'll never forget." On the view screen, Earth rotated peacefully, unaware of the political storm about to break across the galaxy. Behind Morrison, Admiral Park transmitted, "Jake, whatever you're planning, make it count. We didn't save Earth just to lose it in a council chamber." Morrison smiled without humor. "Admiral, we just proved humans can fight. Now it's time to prove we can win. 6 hours until the council session. 6 hours to prepare evidence that would either reform the galaxy or tear it apart." And as Morrison began reviewing Vrin documentation, he realized something crucial. The Council hadn't just failed to stop genocide. They'd actively profited from it. Every peacekeeping deployment came with resource extraction rights. Every occupied colony paid security fees. The entire system was designed to keep species dependent, vulnerable, controllable. The Phyrexians hadn't acted alone. They'd been tools, and tools could be traced back to the hands that wielded them. "Shen," Morrison said quietly, "start compiling financial records. I want every credit transfer, every trade agreement, every backroom deal that tied council votes to Phyrexian actions." "Sir, that's going to show corruption at the highest levels. The political fallout will be exactly what's needed. This system is broken. Time to break it properly." Outside, Vrin ships formed a defensive perimeter around Earth. Not an occupation, a shield. And somewhere in Council space, 47 species were about to learn that humanity's most dangerous weapon wasn't zero-point energy. It was documentation. The council chamber at Neutral Station 7 was designed to inspire awe. A kilometer-wide amphitheater where representatives of 47 species had settled galactic disputes for 3,000 years. Holographic galleries rose in concentric rings, each species delegation positioned according to ancient protocols. Morrison walked into that chamber 6 hours later, boots echoing on polished stone, and felt every eye turned toward him. He wasn't alone. Behind him walked Calyx, her bioluminescent patterns set to formal testimony blue. Admiral Park, representing Earth Defense. Captain Okafor, still covered in carbon scoring from his strike missions. And flanking them all, a Vryn envoy, whose presence made several council members shift uncomfortably. High Chancellor Vexul stood at the central podium, his crystalline features catching the chamber's lighting. "Commander Morrison, you stand accused of..." "No." Morrison's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "We're not doing this your way." Silence crashed across the assembly. "You demanded this session be broadcast," Vexul said carefully. "Very well. The galaxy is watching. They will see human aggression exposed." "They'll see something exposed," Morrison agreed. He pulled out a data crystal, twin to the one he'd placed on the council pedestal 72 hours ago. "But first, let's establish facts. Calyx?" The Vryn analyst stepped forward, her voice carrying that distinctive harmonic overlay. "For the record, I am Calyx of Vryn, tactical analyst seconded to council oversight for 17 years. 3 standard months ago, I brought evidence to this council of Phexian military buildup near human colonies. The council voted to observe, not intervene. When I requested emergency session after reconnaissance confirmed attack preparations, I was denied. When the attacks began, I was ordered to maintain silence." Several council members started speaking at once. Vexul raised a hand for order. "This is out of context. The council cannot intervene in every territorial dispute." 2 million civilians, Morrison said quietly. 3 colonies. Orbital bombardment during harvest season. That's not territorial dispute. That's genocide. He held up the data crystal. "This contains every warning humanity filed, every request for intervention, every moment you chose politics over lives." The Phexians claimed self-defense. A Caltharian representative stood. They presented evidence of human expansion threatening their space. "They presented fabrications," Calyx interrupted, "which I identified as such in my reports. Reports that were buried." Morrison nodded to Admiral Park, who activated a holographic display. Financial records began flowing. Transactions, dates, accounts. "This," Park said, her voice sharp as broken glass, "shows payment from Phexian Imperial accounts to 17 different council species, all dated within the month before the attacks, all marked as consultation fees for voting records. You didn't just ignore genocide, you were paid to ignore it." The chamber erupted. Denials, accusations, counter-accusations. Vexul tried to restore order, but the damage was done. Morrison waited for the chaos to peak, then transmitted a single command to the broadcast network. Every screen in the chamber, every viewer across the galaxy suddenly showed footage. Orbital bombardments, colonies burning, children's bodies pulled from rubble. Vexian commanders, laughing as they reviewed casualty reports. The chamber went silent. "You want to discuss human aggression?" Morrison's voice was cold as vacuum. "Let's discuss what we were responding to. Let's discuss what your deliberate inaction enabled." A Phexian representative, one of the few not on trial, stood shakily. "The Empire, we were following orders. The Council assured us human expansion violated established treaty zones." "Show them," Morrison told Calyx. She activated another display. Treaty documents appeared, but with timestamps. "These treaties," Calyx explained, "were altered 7 months ago. Small changes to boundary definitions. Changes that retroactively made human settlements illegal. Changes authorized by... She paused. High Chancellor Vexwell's office. Morrison watched Vexwell's crystalline features, saw the moment he realized the trap. You manufactured a crisis, Morrison said. Made human expansion look aggressive. Gave the Thexians legal cover, then profited when they acted. This wasn't policy failure. This was conspiracy. Speculation, Vexwell snapped. You have financial records and circumstantial evidence. You cannot prove deliberate. The Vryn envoy spoke for the first time. Her voice was ancient, carrying weight that made even Vexwell pause. We can, and we will. Holographic documents flooded the chamber. Internal council communications, encrypted messages decoded by Vryn intelligence, meeting minutes from sessions that were supposed to be sealed. Morrison watched galactic politics implode in real time. Species turned on species. Old alliances cracked. 3 different delegations walked out, broadcasting their withdrawal from council authority. And through it all, Morrison felt no satisfaction, just exhaustion. This is what humanity wanted you to see, he finally said, speaking to the cameras broadcasting across the galaxy. Not our weapons, not our victories, the corruption that made war necessary in the first place. We tried diplomacy, we tried legal channels, we tried everything except violence. And when violence became the only option, we gave you a warning. He pulled up the original message, 72 hours notice, specific terms, clear deadlines. We told you what would happen. You laughed. And when we followed through, you called us aggressive. Morrison's voice hardened. No more. Humanity withdraws from this council's authority. We'll establish our own treaties, our own trade agreements, our own defensive pacts, with species who earn trust, not demand it. You cannot simply leave, Vexwell protested. Council charter requires consent of the governed, Morrison interrupted. We withdraw consent. Humanity is done being governed by a body that sells genocide as policy. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Those colonies you occupied with peacekeeping forces, you have 24 hours to evacuate. After that, we'll treat them as hostile occupation and respond accordingly. That's a declaration of war against the entire council. Morrison looked back at Vexwell. No, that's a statement of sovereignty. Whether it becomes war depends entirely on your next actions. Choose wisely. He walked out of the chamber, his delegation following. Behind them, the council descended into chaos. Accusations, threats, emergency votes that couldn't achieve quorum as species began withdrawing en masse. Outside the chamber, Morrison found the Vryn matriarch Velsora waiting. That was remarkably human, she observed. Diplomatic and aggressive, simultaneously. Morrison asked, Did we just break the galactic order? Velsora corrected. You broke a corrupt order. What gets built next determines whether that's tragedy or progress. The Vryn Protectorate officially recognizes Terran sovereignty. We will support reformation of council structure with humanity as founding voice. Morrison nodded slowly. And the species that don't accept reformation will find themselves increasingly isolated. You've given them a choice: adapt or become irrelevant. Most will choose adaptation. And the Thexians? Velsora's harmonics turn somber. Their emperor will face tribunal. Their military will be restructured. Their civilians will need time to accept what their leaders did in their name. Justice, Commander, as you promised. Morrison looked back at the council chamber, visible through transparent walls. Inside, the power structure that had dominated the galaxy for millennia was tearing itself apart. Sir, Admiral Park approached. We're receiving transmissions from 17 species. They want to discuss bilateral defense treaties, independent of council authority. Forward them to Diplomatic Corps. We'll need Commander Morrison. A new voice. Morrison turned to see a Thexian, not military, civilian clothing, mandibles trembling. My name is Veshkel. I'm a journalist. I need to ask, did your people really offer surrender terms before the attack? Morrison studied the civilian, saw genuine confusion, the horror of someone realizing their government had lied. Yes, Morrison said simply. 72 hours notice, specific evacuation windows. We warned them exactly what would happen if they didn't withdraw. But our news services, they said humans attacked without warning, that you were monsters. Your news services lied. We have the recordings, the timestamps, everything. Morrison pulled out his datapad, transferred files. Here, the original warnings, the council's responses, all of it. You're a journalist. Do your job. Tell your people the truth. Veshkel stared at the data, mandibles working silently. Then, they'll call me a traitor. Probably. But your children's children will call you honest. Choose which matters more. The Thexian journalist nodded slowly, clutched the data, and hurried away. Morrison watched him go. That's how you win wars, he said quietly. Not by destroying the enemy, by giving them no choice but to confront what their leaders did. His communicator chimed. Captain Okafor's voice. Sir, you need to see this. Every human colony the council occupied, they're evacuating, all of them, simultaneously. Morrison felt tension drain from his shoulders. They're backing down. 3 of the occupying forces are requesting asylum. They're saying they were ordered to use excessive force, refused, and are now facing charges from their own governments. They want Terran protection. Morrison looked at Admiral Park, who raised an eyebrow. We're becoming a refuge for conscientious objectors? Apparently. Morrison made a decision. Grant asylum. Anyone who refused illegal orders gets protection. Send that message far and wide. If your government orders you to commit atrocities, humanity will shelter you. That's going to make us very popular, Park observed dryly. Or very dangerous. Depends on who's asking. Morrison pulled up the tactical display one last time. Chen, fleet status. All ships secured. Casualty reports are, we got lucky, sir. 37 dead, 214 injured. Considering what we faced, that's miraculous. 37 dead, each one someone's friend, parent, child. Morrison added those names to the weight he'd carry forever. Make sure their families know, he said, what they died defending, what they achieved. Already done, sir. Morrison looked at Earth on the display. Peaceful, blue, alive. 300 Thexian ships had tried to burn it. Now those ships were either debris or prisoners, their crews facing justice instead of death. Admiral Park, you have command of Earth defense. I'm taking the fleet back to frontier sectors. Someone needs to make sure the peacekeepers actually leave. And if they don't? Morrison's smile was cold. Then we remind them what happens when you ignore human warnings. We tried diplomacy, we tried law, we tried politics. They forced us to speak the only language they respected. He paused. But we spoke it on our terms, with our rules, and that's what terrifies them. We're not conquerors. We're not victims. We're just done asking permission to exist. He headed for the shuttle bay, where the Defiant waited. Behind him, Calyx caught up, her patterns now showing something like hope. Commander, my people are offering formal alliance. Technology sharing, mutual defense, the works. In exchange for what? Nothing. The Vryn remember what it's like to stand alone against corruption. We're investing in a galaxy that doesn't need monuments to tyranny. She paused. Also, your engineers are terrifying. We want to study them. Morrison laughed. First time in days. Deal. But our engineers get to study yours too. Obviously. Calyx's patterns shifted to amused silver. Fair warning. You've just made humanity the most interesting species in the galaxy. That's both opportunity and danger. Story of our existence. Morrison boarded the shuttle. Let's go make sure those colonies are actually freed, not just repositioned as hostages. As the shuttle lifted off, Morrison took one last look at Neutral Station 7. Inside that ancient chamber, the old order was dying. What replaced it would depend on the next weeks, months, years. But for now, Earth was safe. The fleet was intact. And humanity had proven something crucial. When pushed to extremes, they didn't just survive. They redefined the rules entirely. The galaxy would never be the same. Neither would humanity. And somewhere in Council space, 47 species were realizing that the newest voice in galactic politics wasn't asking for a seat at the table. They were building a new table entirely. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Commander Jake Morrison stood in the Garden of Remembrance, a new memorial built in lunar orbit, crystal spires etched with 2 million names. 3 colonies lost, 37 defenders killed, each name a universe of possibility extinguished. He wasn't alone. Beside him stood Calyx, her patterns respectfully muted to memorial gray. Admiral Park, promoted to Joint Defense Command. Captain Okafor, now leading Terran strategic operations. And behind them, representatives from 32 species, not council members anymore, but alliance partners. The Coalition of Free Systems, they called it, built on principles humanity had insisted upon. Transparency, consent, mutual defense without dominance. It wasn't perfect. Nothing that involved politics ever was. But it was better. The tribunal concluded yesterday, Calyx reported quietly. Phyrexian Emperor Kreshval and 17 council members convicted of conspiracy to commit genocide. Sentences range from exile to complete government restructuring. Morrison nodded. And the Phyrexian people? Struggling. Half their population believes the tribunal was legitimate justice. Half believes it was Victor's revenge. Calyx's patterns flickered. It will take generations to heal. Most important things do. Morrison touched one of the memorial crystals. The name read, Sarah Chen, Lieutenant Defiant, age 27. Killed during the Void Scar engagement. Her family had sent Morrison a letter, thanking him for the flowers he'd sent. He kept it in his quarters, read it when command decisions felt too abstract. Commander Morrison? A young voice. Morrison turned to see Veshkel, the Phyrexian journalist, approaching with cautious respect. In 6 months, Veshkel had become the most trusted voice in Phyrexian media. The one who told uncomfortable truths instead of comfortable lies. You can call me Jake, Morrison said. We're not at war anymore. Jake, then. Veshkel's mandibles worked nervously. I'm doing a follow-up piece, 6 months after, for the young Phyrexians trying to understand how we got here. What do you need from me? The truth. When you placed that warning on the council pedestal, did you believe they'd listen? Morrison considered. No, I hoped they would, believed they wouldn't. That's why we prepared for what came next. Then the warning was, what, theater? Documentation. We needed the galaxy to see we tried everything else first. Not for our sake, for history's. So our children could read about this moment and understand. We didn't want war. We tried to prevent it. But when prevention failed, we didn't hesitate. Veshkel's recorder captured every word. And the zero-point weapons? Why reveal them through violence instead of diplomatic demonstration? Because the council didn't respect demonstrations. They respected power. So we showed them power. Precisely, restrained, but undeniable. We could have destroyed their homeworlds. We destroyed their logistics instead. That's the message. We're capable of genocide but choose strategy. That's what makes us dangerous and trustworthy simultaneously. Some of my people say you're still dangerous. That humanity is waiting for the right moment to conquer. Morrison gestured to the memorial. These names are why we won't. Every person here is someone we failed to save in time. We remember that. We carry it. Conquerors forget their dead. Survivors honor them. Veshkel's recorder continued. If you could go back, change what happened, would you? Morrison looked at Calyx, at Admiral Park, at the representatives of 32 species who'd chosen different paths than the old council. I'd save those 2 million people. I'd prevent the need for war. But I wouldn't change what we became afterward. The galaxy needed to break. The question was whether something better grew from the pieces. And did it? Ask me in 100 years. Right now, we're still building. The interview concluded. Veshkel thanked him, departed with that distinctive Thexian gait that Morrison had learned to read, shame mixed with hope. A species trying to reconcile what their leaders did with what their people wanted to be. Sir, Admiral Park approached as the sun rose over the memorial. Earth's sun, visible through the observation windows. The Vryn matriarch is here. She wants to speak with you. Matriarch Valsora materialized via hologram, her ancient harmonics carrying warmth. Commander Morrison, I came to share news. The old council has dissolved, formally. 47 species have ratified new charter, the Galactic Confederation, equal representation, binding ethics protocols, and humanity as founding voice. Morrison felt weight settle differently. We're not conquerors. Valsora's harmonics shifted serious. No, you're revolutionaries. You broke unjust system and offered better alternative. That's more dangerous than conquest. It's transmissible. Other species are already adopting Terran principles. Transparency, consent, defense without domination. Will it last? That depends on you, on whether humanity remembers why you fought. Valsora's harmonics carried a grave tone. Power corrupts. The Vryn know this intimately. We built empires once, watched them decay into tyranny. You've been given a voice in galactic order. Use it wisely. We'll try. That's all anyone can promise. Then I have faith. The hologram started to fade. Oh, one more item. Your engineers and ours have completed joint project. 0-point energy refined. We're sharing technology freely with Confederation members. Within 10 years, energy scarcity becomes historical problem. Morrison stared. You're giving away that technology? You gave us reformation. Fair trade. The hologram smiled. Besides, we've been working on something more interesting. Quantum displacement. Instant travel. Your scientists are remarkably creative when properly supported. The hologram vanished. Morrison stood in the memorial garden as implications cascaded. Unlimited clean energy. Instant travel. Humanity hadn't just survived, they'd triggered technological renaissance. Sir, Captain Okafor joined the group. I have field report from frontier sectors. The last council peacekeepers withdrew 3 weeks ago. All human colonies report full sovereignty restored. Causalities during occupation? 47 injured. 0 deaths. The occupiers were surprisingly professional once they realized we'd actually fight. Because they'd seen the Battle of Earth, Calyx observed. Seen what happens when you push humanity to extremes. Fear is a teacher too. Morrison nodded slowly. Make sure those 47 get full medical support. And reach out to the species whose soldiers showed restraint. Let's build on that. He turned to Admiral Park. Status of fleet expansion. We're at 60% capacity for Terran Defense Force. Another 6 months until we're at full defensive posture. But Jake, we're getting applications from other species. People want to serve in human military because we treat prisoners ethically. Accept volunteers who meet standards. But make it clear, we're a defense force, not an empire. Anyone who signs up is defending principles, not claiming territory. Understood. Morrison looked at the memorial one last time. 2 million names, 37 defenders. Each one a weight he'd carry forever. But also, billion saved, a corrupt system dismantled, new alliance built on better principles, technology shared freely, genocide prevented from becoming precedent. The cost had been terrible, but so had the alternative. Commander? A young lieutenant approached, fresh-faced, probably 23, still had that recruit shine. Sir, I'm Lieutenant Emma Kowalski. I joined because of what you did. Because humanity didn't back down, but didn't become monsters either. I want to be part of that. Morrison saw himself in her eyes, younger, before command weight settled in. Then remember this, Lieutenant. We're not heroes. We're people who did what was necessary, when necessary. The trick is knowing when necessary ends and excessive begins. That's what separates justice from revenge. How do you know the difference? You remember the names. Morrison gestured to the memorial. Every one, you carry them. And when you're tempted to go too far, you ask, would this honor them, or would it disgrace their sacrifice? That's your compass. Lieutenant Kowalski saluted, crisp, professional, believing. Morrison returned it. As the group dispersed, Morrison found himself alone in the garden as Earth rose over the lunar horizon. Beautiful planet. Stubborn species. Together, they'd rewritten galactic order. Not through conquest, through refusing to accept that corruption was inevitable. His communicator chimed, message from the Defiant. New assignment, frontier patrol, protecting settlements, showing the flag. Morrison smiled. Some things never changed. That was transforming daily. He took one last look at Sarah Chen's name on the memorial. We did it, he said quietly. Not perfectly, but we did it. Rest easy. Outside the memorial, a fleet of ships waited, human, Vrin, and 30 other species. The coalition of free systems, ready to patrol, protect, and prove that better order was possible. As Morrison boarded the shuttle back to the Defiant, Calyx caught up, her patterns shifting to determined gold. Commander, I've been assigned as permanent liaison. Apparently, I'm good at translating human stubbornness into diplomatic language. That's called honesty. We just call it differently than the Council did. Exactly. So where are we going? Morrison pulled up the star chart. Frontier sectors, new colonies, species requesting defense partnerships. Work that would take decades. Everywhere, he said. That's the job now. Not conquering, not just defending. Everywhere. Building something better. The shuttle lifted off, carrying them back to the fleet. Below, Earth turned in peaceful rotation, 2 billion lives continuing because humanity had refused to accept genocide as politics. Above, the Galactic Confederation began its first formal session, 47 species learning new rules, transparency, consent, and the understanding that power came with responsibility. And somewhere in Council space, the last monument to the old order was being dismantled. Not destroyed, repurposed. The stone would build hospitals. The metal would build schools. From tyranny to service. From corruption to healing. That was the human gift. Not weapons, but transformation. The galaxy would argue for centuries whether humanity's revolution was justified. Scholars would debate tactics. Politicians would rewrite history. But the names on the memorial wouldn't change. And neither would the fact that humanity had warned them. Given 72 hours, offered evacuation, provided every possible off-ramp, the galaxy had chosen war. Humanity had chosen justice. And when the smoke cleared, the galaxy discovered something crucial. The species that could build impossible energy didn't need to conquer. They just needed to be left alone. Everything else was negotiable. If you enjoyed this journey through humanity's finest and darkest hours, drop a comment below with your thoughts. Which moment hit hardest? What would you have done differently? And don't forget to share this with fellow sci-fi fans. Stories like this remind us what we're capable of when pushed to extremes. Until next time, This is HFY Core, reminding you, the best weapon isn't technology. It's principles you refuse to abandon. Stay strong out there.